Hello students, my name is Supriya Singh and in today's video I'm going to explain the poem A Tiger in the Zoo, which is composed by George Leslie Norris, and this poem is poem number 3 in the First Flight book. George Leslie Norris is considered as one of the most important Welsh writers of the post-war period and has won many prizes for his literary publications. Few of his notable works are Finding Gold, The Loud Winner, and many more. The poem explains the helplessness and agony of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poem solely depicts the condition of animals that are kept in zoo just for human entertainment. The poet creates a contrast between the life of a caged tiger with that of a free tiger, which means the tiger that lives in its natural habitat, that is forest. We will start with the very first stanza. He stalks in his vivid stripes, the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. So the poem starts with a very beautiful depiction of the tiger's body. The tiger is having vivid stripes on its body. What do we mean by vivid? Vivid here means lively or bright in color. As we all know that tigers have stripes on their bodies. So this caged tiger is also having very bright, beautiful stripes on its body. And he is taking few steps inside his cage. Why is he taking few steps? Because the cage's area is very small. He can't take many steps. The area is very limited. That's why he's taking few steps inside the cage on pads of velvet quiet. Now this pads here means the inner side of the tiger's paws. So the inner side of the tiger's paws are so soft, it's like almost velvet. And when he's taking steps, his footsteps are very quiet because his feet is very soft. In his quiet rage, and he is angry. Rage means anger. So he is enraged because of the fact that he has been captivated inside the zoo and he has been deprived of his freedom. So of course he is angry, but he can't express his anger. So he is only walking. He is walking to and fro inside the cage just to express his anger. He is trying to suppress his anger. Now in the second stanza, the poet describes the actual life and personality of a free tiger. He goes on to say, he should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. So the poet says that if this tiger, which has been captivated and kept inside the zoo, if it would have been freely roaming in the jungle, it should have been hiding behind the shadow of long grass. Now lurking means hiding. It should have been hiding behind the long grass and it should have been sliding through, that means walking through the long grass near the water source where all the other animals come in order to quench their thirst. And then the tiger could have easily made a plump deer. Plump means fat. A fat deer, its food. It could have easily caught its prey in order to have its food. So the poet says that the actual life of a tiger is to live in jungle and to prey animals in order to have them as its food. But the caged animal cannot do so because he has been kept away from its natural habitat. Let us have a look at the third stanza. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws terrorizing the village. So in the third stanza also, the poet describes the actual personality of a free tiger, and he says that if the tiger would have been free, it should have snarled around the houses which are located at the outskirts of the forest. Now what do we mean by snarling? Snarling means frightening people by making noise. So the poet says that a free tiger should have frightened people by roaring and it should have bared its white fangs. Now baring means showing. So the tiger should have shown its white fangs. White fangs means the sharp tooth of animals. So it should have shown its fangs, teeth, and its claws, and this would have created fear among the people of the village. Now in the fourth stanza, the poet describes the reality of the caged tiger. But he's locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. So the poet says that the tiger has been locked inside a concrete cell. That means a cell which has been made up of concrete. Concrete is a strong building material. So when the tiger has been locked inside a cell, his power, his ferociousness is also locked inside the cell, and he cannot do anything about his situation. He only stalks the length of the cell. Now stalking means he just walks inside the cell and he determines the length of the cage, and he knows that he is helpless. He can't terrorize the people, he can't frighten people like how a free tiger would have been doing in the jungle. So what he does, he ignores the visitors. Why are the visitors mentioned here? Because it is a zoo and people visit zoo in order to entertain them by looking at the caged animals. The sight of caged animals make them happy. Let us understand the very last stanza. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. So the poet says that in the night, this caged tiger, he hears the sounds of a patrolling car. Now patrolling car is a vehicle inside which the guards of the zoo, they travel in order to keep a vigilance over the animals of the zoo. So in the night, the tiger hears the sounds of this patrolling car, and he stares at the bright stars with his shining eyes. So the tiger, he knows that he is very helpless and he cannot do anything about his situation. So he looks at the shining stars with his shining eyes. Now this can be a symbolism for the tiger's yearning for freedom. He wants freedom. He is not happy with his situation, but he is helpless. And when he looks at the clear, beautiful sky, he looks at the bright stars, he is actually yearning for his freedom. He wants to be freed. Nobody wants to be captivated, right? In this poem, the poet has shown a difference between the lives of free animals and that of caged animals. When the animals are kept inside the zoo, they face a lot of difficulties. Lack of space, social stress, presence of visitors, all these things can elicit a stress response in animals which may adversely affect their welfare. All the animals in animal kingdom, they have their natural habitat, and if they are kept away from their natural habitat, they may forget their real personality, which is not a beneficial thing for the wellness of animal kingdom. Now we will look at the rhyme scheme that has been used in the poem. So the rhyme scheme ABCB has been used throughout the poem. I'll show you in the very first stanza that ends with stripe, cage, quiet, rage. So stripes is A, cage is B, quiet doesn't rhyme with stripes, so that is C, and rage. Cage and rage, they rhyme together. So A, B, C, B. And that pattern has been used throughout the poem in all the other stanzas as well. Now let us have a look at the literary devices used in the poem. I'll explain the literary devices stanza wise. So in the very first stanza, personification has been used when the poet uses he for the tiger. We all know that we should use it for the animals, but in the poem, the poet has used he for the tiger. That means he has personified the tiger. Then there is a metaphor. Metaphor is a comparison between two unlike things. So when he says pads of velvet, that means the tiger's paws are soft like velvet. So metaphor has been used. Then there is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figure of speech in which two adjectives which are different in meaning, they are placed side by side. So in the fourth line, when he says quiet rage, that means the anger cannot be quiet. So oxymoron has been used. Then there is imagery as well. When in the very first two sentences, the poet says he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, we can instantly imagine a figure of a walking tiger inside a cage. So imagery is there. Then there is enjambment. Enjambment is a continuation of a sentence to the next line without any punctuation mark. So enjambment is also there. In the second stanza also enjambment has been used. As I told you, enjambment is the continuation of the same sentence to the next line without any punctuation mark. So when the poet says, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass, enjambment has been used. Then there is alliteration in the fourth line of the second stanza where plump deer pass. So paw sound has been used. Then there is imagery as well. The poet tries to create an image of a tiger which is hiding behind the long grass near the water source. So imagery is also there. In the third stanza, onomatopoeia is used, a word that sounds like what it represents. So when the poet uses a snarling, snarling is a word and the sound of the tiger as well. Onomatopoeia is thus used here. Then there is assonance. Assonance means prominence of a vowel sound. So in the first line of third stanza, he should be snarling around houses. O sound is very prominent, and in the third line, bearing his white fangs, his claws, E sound is very prominent. Then there is enjambment here as well. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. So the first sentence comes to an end in the next line. In the fourth stanza, personification is again used when the poet uses he, his for the tiger. Then there is alliteration, his strength behind bars. So B sound has been repeated. Then there is assonance. Assonance means prominence of a vowel sound, which is there in the very first line of the fourth stanza. He's locked in a concrete cell. So the vowel sound E is very prominent here. Then there is consonance. Consonance means prominence of consonant sound, which is there in the second line. His strength behind bars. So sa sound has been repeated. Now comes the very last stanza. Here alliteration has been used when the poet says he hears the last voice at night. So he hears, her sound has been repeated. Then there is personification as well because he has been used for the tiger. Then there is enjambment as well because the third line continues to the next line without any punctuation mark. And then there is assonance as well in the third sentence, and stares with his brilliant eyes. So the vowel sound I is prominent in the third line of the fifth stanza. Alright, so with this we come to an end of today's video. I hope I was able to make you understand this poem in the simplest possible manner. And if you find still any doubt in understanding this poem, you can let me know by commenting down below. If you find this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Till then, study well, take care, and thank you.